She had $11 in her purse, a broken furnace at home, and a sick toddler waiting for medicine she could not afford. And she still said yes. Beatrice Whitaker, a black woman raising 5 white boys that nobody in the foster care system wanted, gave everything she had to children who were not hers. She fed them when she was hungry. She held them when she was breaking. She loved them when the world told her to stop, and the system took them away, not because she was a bad mother, but because she was a poor one. She never saw them again. Years of silence, years of empty rooms and unanswered letters. Then, one morning, her doorbell rang, and the 5 boys she lost were standing on her porch, but they were not boys anymore, and what they brought with them would change her life forever. Man, stories like this really hit you. Let's get into it. But before the doorbell, before the suits and the tears, before any of that, there was just Beatrice and a house that was never big enough. Memphis, Tennessee. Beatrice Whitaker lived alone in a 2-bedroom bungalow on a dead-end street in South Memphis. Peeling paint, chain-link fence, a patched roof that leaked when the rain hit sideways. Out back, a vegetable garden she tended every morning before the sun came up. Tomatoes, collard greens, sweet potatoes. She treated that garden like a church. The neighborhood was tired. Boarded-up houses on every other lot. A corner store with bars on the windows. Stray dogs that knew her by name because she fed them scraps from the porch. Beatrice worked 2 jobs. Days, she cooked in the cafeteria at a public elementary school, on her feet from early morning until afternoon, serving hundreds of plates on minimum wage. 3 evenings a week, she drove her rusted Buick across town to restock shelves at a grocery store until midnight. Her husband, Raymond, had died some years earlier. Heart attack on a factory floor. He was in his 40s. No life insurance, no savings. She still owed the burial, a payment she made every month, $10 at a time, like clockwork. She kept his work boots by the back door, laces tied, as if he might walk in one evening, tired and smiling, the way he used to. Beatrice was not a woman who complained. She hummed gospel while she cooked. She left plates of food on her front porch for anyone who was hungry. When neighbors did not wave back, she waved again the next day. She was not naive. She knew exactly how hard the world was. She just refused to let it make her hard too. And then Rachel Thompson called. Rachel was a social worker, overworked, underpaid, running on coffee and guilt. She had placed dozens of children in foster homes across Memphis. Most of those calls were routine. This one was not. B, I have a boy, 12 years old, name's Grady. His father is doing time for armed robbery. His mother is in on drug charges. The boy has been in 3 homes in 1 year. Every single one sent him back. Why? He is angry. B, violent, punches walls, flips tables, broke a foster father's glasses. His file says high risk. Nobody will touch him. Beatrice was quiet for a moment. She looked around her tiny house. 1 spare bedroom. Barely enough grocery money for herself. Send him to me. She set up a cot in the living room. When Grady arrived, tall for his age, jaw clenched, fists tight, eyes that dared you to get close, she pointed to the cot and said, "This is your spot. Nobody is taking it." He did not believe her. Why would he? Every adult in his life had lied. But Beatrice did not lie. Within months, Rachel called again, and again, and again. Each time, a child no one else would take. Each time, a different reason. Wesley was 9. He had a stutter so severe that most people could not understand him. In his previous home, a foster parent told him to just stop doing that. He stopped talking entirely, went completely silent. The school labeled him selectively mute. Teachers did not know what to do. Families did not want to try. Hudson was 8. Born with fetal alcohol syndrome, his birth mother drank through the entire pregnancy. He was small for his age, learning disabilities across the board. His official file had a word stamped on it that Beatrice read once and had to put down the paper before she said something she could not take back. The word was unadoptable. Emmett was 6. Both his parents died in a house fire. He survived because he was sleeping at a neighbor's house that night. He had night terrors, screaming, thrashing, drenched in sweat. He wet the bed every night. 2 foster families returned him in less than a month. Too disruptive, they said. He was 6. And then there was Finn. Finn was 3 years old, abandoned at a hospital at 10 months, no known family, no birth certificate on file. He was underweight, behind on every milestone, and diagnosed with failure to thrive. He did not make eye contact. He did not reach for people. He did not cry. And that scared the caseworkers more than crying ever would. Each time Rachel called, Beatrice did the math. Grocery money, bed space, school supplies, electricity, gas for the Buick. Each time, the math did not work. Each time, she said yes. Because somewhere between the numbers on paper and the child on the other end of the phone, there was a kid who needed somebody. And Beatrice Whitaker could not be the person who said no. 5 boys. 5 reasons nobody wanted them. 1 woman in a 2-bedroom house with a leaking roof and $11 between paychecks. But what Beatrice did not know, what she could not have known, was that every single thing she was about to pour into these children would come back to her, multiplied, years from now, on a morning she never saw coming. But that was later. Right now, she had 5 boys to feed, and the furnace was broken. Now, here is where things start to fall apart. Because Beatrice could handle the hunger. She could handle the exhaustion. What she could not handle was somebody telling her that loving these boys was not enough. One winter with all 5 was brutal. Temperatures in Memphis dropped sharply for a week straight, and that is when the furnace died. Not sputtered, not slowed down, died. Cold air pushing through the vents like the house was breathing ice. Beatrice could not afford a repair. She did not even call for a quote because she already knew the answer. So she did what she always did. She figured it out. She layered every blanket in the house on the boys' beds. She dragged a space heater into the hallway between the 2 bedrooms and let it run all night. And she slept on the living room floor in her winter coat next to Grady's cot, close enough to hear if anyone cried. That week, Finn got sick. A deep, barking cough that rattled his tiny chest. Beatrice drove him to the free clinic in the Buick early in the morning, engine groaning, heat barely working. The doctor said he needed a nebulizer and medication. The cost, even discounted, was more than she had. She paid with the money she had set aside for the electric bill. She did not hesitate. She did not think about it. A child was sick. That was the only math that mattered. When she got home, there was a yellow disconnection notice taped to her front door, and that should have been the worst of it. But it was not, because the system was watching. It started with a routine county case review. Beatrice's file got flagged. 5 foster children in a 2-bedroom house, single income, below the poverty line. No second caregiver. Standard red flags on paper. So the county sent someone to look. Her name was Linda Kane, case reviewer, efficient, professional, not cruel, but operating strictly by the book. She arrived one morning with a clipboard and a checklist, and she walked through every room in Beatrice's house like she was grading an exam. She noted the 2 bedrooms for 6 people, Grady sleeping on a cot in the living room, Wesley and Hudson sharing a twin bed, Emmett and Finn in the other bedroom with Beatrice. She noted the leaking faucet in the kitchen, the space heater in the hallway, a fire code violation. She asked about income. Beatrice showed her the pay stubs from both jobs. Combined, it was not enough by the county's formula. She asked about support systems. Beatrice had her neighbor Evelyn, in her 80s, and Pastor Harlan Reed at the church. No family, no partner, no backup plan. Linda wrote her notes carefully. Then she looked up and said, "Ms. Whitaker, I can see these children are loved, but the county has standards for space, income, and safety. I have to report what I see." Beatrice's voice was steady, quiet, but every word landed like a stone. "Those standards, do they measure whether a child feels safe? Because Grady stopped punching walls some time ago. Wesley said his first full sentence in my kitchen last week. Finn laughed for the first time in his life right there by that stove. Does your clipboard have a box for that?" Linda paused. She did not answer. She finished her form and left. Sometime later, a letter arrived. Official county letterhead. Beatrice's foster care license was under review. The recommendation was redistribution, a cold, clinical word. That meant they wanted to split the boys up and send them to separate homes that met the county's spatial and financial requirements. Redistribution. 5 boys who had finally stopped being afraid. 5 boys who slept through the night because they knew someone was in the next room, and the state wanted to scatter them across the city like they were inventory. Beatrice fought. She fought hard. Pastor Harlan wrote a letter of support to the county. Evelyn, in her 80s, bad hip, barely able to stand, went down to the county office in person and testified. Rachel Thompson argued the case from the inside, putting her own job at risk. Beatrice borrowed money she did not have for a lawyer she could not afford. None of it was enough. The county's criteria were numerical: square footage per child, income to dependent ratio, fire safety compliance. Beatrice failed on every single metric. And the fact that 5 deeply traumatized boys were thriving for the first time in their lives, that did not fit on the form. There was no column for love, no checkbox for this woman sits outside a child's door every night until he stops being afraid. The system measured walls and dollars. It did not measure what happened inside them. The ruling came down some time later. The boys would be removed and placed in separate homes across the county. And Beatrice Whitaker, the woman who never said no, could not say a single thing to stop it. But the worst part was not the ruling. The worst part was the morning they came to take them. And that morning would break her in a way that years could not heal. She knew they were coming. She had known for some time. And still, when the morning arrived, it did not feel real. Beatrice woke up early. The house was dark. The boys were still asleep, all 5 of them breathing in that uneven rhythm that children have when they are dreaming. She stood in the hallway for a long time, just listening, memorizing the sound. Because after today, the house would be silent. She went to the kitchen and started cooking. Pancakes, animal shapes, the way she always made them. A dinosaur for Finn, a bear for Emmett, a dog for Hudson, a bird for Wesley, and plain circles for Grady, because he always said he was too old for shapes, but he ate them every time. every single time. She set 5 plates on the table. She poured 5 glasses of milk. She folded 5 napkins. And then, she stood at the stove and pressed her palms flat against the counter to keep her hands from shaking. The boys came in one by one, rubbing their eyes, shuffling in socks. Finn climbed into his chair and immediately grabbed his fork. Emmett sat close to Beatrice's empty chair, the way he always did. Hudson counted his pancakes. He always counted everything. Wesley sat quietly and started eating without looking up. Grady came last. He stood in the kitchen doorway and did not move. He looked at the 5 plates. He looked at Beatrice, and something passed between them that neither of them said out loud. He knew. He had known longer than the others, because Grady always knew when something bad was coming. That is what happens when bad things come early and come often. He sat down. He ate his plain circles. He did not say a word. Beatrice had ironed their clothes the night before. 5 outfits hung on the backs of 5 chairs. She had packed each boy a bag. Not the garbage bags that foster kids usually carry, but real bags. She had bought them at a thrift store. $2 each. 1 blue, 1 red, 1 green, 1 black, 1 gray. She wrote each boy's name inside with a permanent marker so no one could mix them up. So they would have something that was theirs. She tucked something into each bag. For Wesley, a note that said, "Your voice matters. Use it." For Hudson, the second-hand phonics book they had read together every night for a year. For Emmett, a photo of Beatrice holding him in the rocking chair. For Finn, a small stuffed dinosaur she had found at a yard sale. For Grady, she did not pack anything extra. Because she knew Grady. He did not want objects. He wanted the truth. Later that morning, the county van pulled up outside. 2 caseworkers stepped out, followed by Linda Kane. They stood on the sidewalk and waited, professional, patient. As if this were just another morning. It was not. Beatrice brought the boys to the porch. She knelt down in front of each one. 5 goodbyes, 5 forevers, compressed into seconds. She held Hudson first. He hugged her so tight she could not breathe. She whispered in his ear, "You are smart. Do not let anyone tell you different. You hear me?" He nodded into her shoulder, but could not let go. A caseworker had to gently pull him away. She knelt in front of Emmett. He was shaking, not crying, shaking, the way he shook during his night terrors. She took his face in both hands. "You are brave. You survived something that would break most grown men. And you are only 6. You remember that." Wesley was crying, silently, the way he did everything. Tears running down his face without a sound. Beatrice pulled him close and whispered, "Do not you ever go quiet again. You have things to say. You promise me." He nodded. He could not speak, but he nodded. Then she turned to Grady, the oldest, the angry one, the one who punched walls and broke things and dared the world to give up on him. He was not angry now. His jaw was tight. His fists were clenched at his sides, but his eyes were red. He was 12 years old and trying so hard not to cry that his whole body was rigid. Beatrice held his face the way she had held Emmett's. She looked straight into his eyes. "You are not broken. You never were. Do not you ever let anyone put that word on you. Not a caseworker, not a judge, not anyone. You hear me, Grady?" He did not answer. He pulled away. He walked to the van without looking back. But as he passed the refrigerator, the door still open from breakfast, he stopped. He reached up and pulled off a crayon drawing that had been taped there for months. A stick figure woman surrounded by 5 smaller stick figures. Underneath, in his handwriting, Mama B and us. He folded it carefully and put it in his bag. He did not say anything about it. He did not have to. And then there was Finn, the youngest. 3 years old when he arrived. 4 now. He did not understand what was happening. He did not know that the van outside meant he was leaving. He did not know that redistribution meant he would wake up tomorrow in a different bed, in a different house, with a different person who did not know that he liked dinosaur pancakes. Finn just looked up at Beatrice and smiled. A caseworker lifted him into the van. He pressed his small hand against the window and waved. That wave, those tiny fingers to spread wide against the glass. That smile that did not know it should be breaking. That was the image that would live inside Beatrice Whitaker for the years to come. The van doors closed. Wesley turned in his seat and looked through the rear window. His lips moved. 2 words, no sound. His stutter would not let him. But Beatrice read them. She read them perfectly. Thank you. The van pulled away from the curb. It turned at the end of the dead-end street, and then it was gone. Beatrice stood on the porch. She did not move. She did not go inside. Evelyn came over after a while and put an arm around her. Beatrice did not speak. She could not. Minutes passed. An hour. Finally, she walked inside. The kitchen table still had 5 plates, 5 forks, 5 napkins, crumbs from pancakes shaped like animals, and by the front door, 5 pairs of small shoes lined up the way she had taught them. Heels against the wall, laces tucked in. Finn's were the smallest. One sole was coming loose. Beatrice picked up Finn's shoes. She held them to her chest, and for the first time since Raymond died, she let herself fall apart completely. She sank to the floor, her back against the door, holding those tiny shoes, and she cried until there was nothing left. She did not move the shoes, not that day, not that week, not that year, not ever. Nah, hold on. Stop. I need a second. Because she knew they were taking her boys. She knew. And she still woke up early that morning to make them pancakes. Bro, that is not kindness. That is something I do not even have a word for. And honestly, I do not think I could have done that. The house did not feel like a house anymore. It felt like a held breath that nobody let go. Beatrice went back to work the next morning. She had to. The Bills did not care that her heart was in pieces. She showed up at the school cafeteria early, tied her apron, and served breakfast to other people's children with the same steady hands that had made dinosaur pancakes the day before. Nobody at work knew what happened. She did not tell them. When a coworker asked why she looked tired, she said she had not slept well. That was true. She had not slept at all. She had spent the night sitting in the hallway between the 2 bedrooms, listening to silence where there used to be breathing. She kept the house exactly the way it was. 5 pairs of shoes by the front door, crayon marks on the kitchen wall where Finn had drawn a circle he called a sun, a dent in the drywall from the time Grady punched it during his first week. She never patched it. She left it because it was proof. Proof that he was here. Proof that he was real. Every month she sat at the kitchen table and wrote letters. 1 for Grady, 1 for Wesley, 1 for Hudson, 1 for Emmett, 1 for Finn. She did not know their new addresses. She did not know if they were together or separated. She did not know if they were safe. But she wrote the letters anyway. Every single one started the same way. Dear name, I am still here. I am not going anywhere. The same words she used to say outside Grady's bedroom door. She folded each letter neatly, put it in an envelope, wrote the boy's name on the front, and placed it in a shoebox under her bed. Month after month, year after year, the box filled up. She got a second box, then a third. By the end, there were over 1,200 letters in those boxes, unsent, unread, written with the same care as if she were placing them directly into their hands. And every year, every single year, on the anniversary of the day they were taken, Beatrice woke up early and made pancakes. 5 plates, animal shapes, a dinosaur, a bear, a dog, a bird, plain circles. She set them on the table with 5 glasses of milk and 5 folded napkins. She sat down in her chair. She ate 1 plate. The other 4 she wrapped up and left on the front porch. Evelyn saw her do this the first year and did not say a word. The second year, she brought over coffee and sat with her. By the 5th year, she stopped asking why. She just showed up. People in the neighborhood noticed Beatrice was different after the boys left. Quieter. Not broken. Never broken. But dimmer. Like someone had turned a light down low. She still hummed gospel. She still left food on the porch. She still waved at neighbors who did not wave back. But there was a weight behind her eyes that was not there before. A woman from church once suggested she tell her story to a local news station. People should know what you did, Bea. What the system did to you. You could fight this. Beatrice shook her head. Did not even think about it. I did not raise those boys for a news story. I raised them because they needed raising. And I am not putting their names on television so strangers can feel sorry for us. That was the end of that conversation. She did not want pity. She did not want attention. She did not want recognition. She just wanted to know if her boys were okay. And nobody could give her that. So she kept writing letters no one would read. She kept making pancakes no one would eat. She kept those 5 pairs of shoes lined up by the door like a prayer she refused to stop saying. And years passed. But what Beatrice did not know, what she had no way of knowing, was that she was not the only one who remembered. 5 boys, scattered across 5 different cities, were carrying pieces of her with them, and one of them had already started looking. Because here is what Beatrice never found out. Not for years. The system that promised those boys something better gave them something worse. The 5 boys were separated the same week they left her porch, sent to different counties, different homes, different lives. The system that said Beatrice's house was too small put Grady in a group home with 30 kids and 4 staff members who rotated every 6 months. No one sat outside his door. No one told him he was not broken. He started punching walls again. Wesley went to a family that did not learn his name for a week. They called him the Quiet One. He did not speak for 2 years. Hudson was placed in a special needs facility. Fluorescent lights, plastic chairs, worksheets instead of conversations. Nobody sat with him at night to read a phonics book. His file still said unadoptable. Nobody crossed it out. Emmett bounced between 3 homes in 2 years. Each one gave up when the night terrors started. Too loud, too much, too broken. He was 8 years old and had already learned that nowhere was permanent. Finn was the only one who got something close to stability. A family in another state adopted him. They were kind. They gave him a room, a bed, a name on a Christmas stocking. But one night, when he was 5, he said a word his adoptive parents had never heard before. Mama Bea. They asked him who that was. He could not explain. He just knew the name meant safe. Every one of those boys carried something from Beatrice's house. Grady had the crayon drawing, folded, creased, tucked into every backpack and duffel bag. He owned for the years to come. Wesley had a sentence burned into his memory: "Your voice matters. Use it." Hudson had a phonics book held together with tape. Emmett had the feeling of being rocked in a chair by someone who did not let go. Finn had a name. And in every home they lived in after Beatrice, each boy looked for the same thing without knowing they were looking. Small shoes lined up by a front door. A kitchen that smelled like pancakes in the morning. A voice in the hallway that said, "I am right here." None of them found it. Years passed. The boys became teenagers. The teenagers became men. And one of them, the angry one, the one who punched walls, the one who walked to the van without looking back, started searching. Grady was in his 20s when he typed a name into a search bar for the first time. Beatrice Whitaker, Memphis, Tennessee. What he found changed everything. She was still there. Same house, same street, same chain-link fence, same dead-end road in South Memphis. Years and Beatrice Whitaker had not moved. That detail alone nearly broke Grady. He was sitting in his office in Nashville, a small firm, nothing fancy. Stacks of case files on every surface, when the public records search returned her address. He stared at the screen for a long time. The same address. The exact same address from the day they took him away. She never left, and he knew why. He knew it the way you know something in your bones before your brain catches up. She stayed so they could find her. Grady was a criminal defense attorney. He represented people the system had thrown away. Addicts, repeat offenders, teenagers tried as adults, people whose files said high risk, people who reminded him of himself. He kept the crayon drawing framed on his desk. Every client who sat across from him saw it. Sometimes they asked about it. He always said the same thing. "My mother drew it." Well, I drew it for her. He had not called Beatrice, not yet, because showing up alone was not enough. He needed to find the others first. It took him years. Wesley was the easiest to find. He was in Atlanta, working as a speech therapist at a children's hospital. He helped kids with stutters, kids who went silent, kids who had been told their whole lives that something was wrong with the way they talked. His office had one piece of decoration on the wall, a framed sentence written in a woman's handwriting. "Your voice matters. Use it." When Grady called him, Wesley did not stutter once. He listened. He was quiet for 10 seconds. Then he said, "Tell me when." Hudson was in Charlotte. He had become an educational consultant specializing in children with learning disabilities. Kids the system called slow. Kids whose files got stamped with words that closed doors instead of opening them. He traveled to schools across the Southeast training teachers to see potential where paperwork only showed problems. He still carried the phonics book in his briefcase, battered, taped together, pages soft from years of turning. The cat sat on the mat. Page 1. The first sentence he ever read out loud, sitting at a kitchen table in South Memphis with a woman who never once told him to hurry. When Grady found him, Hudson said one thing: "I still have the book." Emmett was in Dallas. He was a firefighter. He had chosen the profession the way some people choose a religion, not because it was easy, but because it answered something inside him that nothing else could. "Nobody saved my parents," he told his crew once. "I could not do anything. I was 6, but I am not 6 anymore." In some years, he had pulled 11 people out of burning buildings. Every single time, the moment he lifted someone into his arms, he thought about a rocking chair and a woman who held him through the screaming. When Grady called, Emmett did not say, "Tell me when." He said, "Tell me where. I will drive tonight." Finn was the hardest to find. Different state, different last name, adopted. The records were sealed. It took Grady months and a legal petition to unseal the adoption file. When he finally tracked Finn down, he was in Chicago. A pediatrician, still in residency, working long hours at a children's hospital. He specialized in failure to thrive cases, babies who did not eat, toddlers who did not grow, kids who did not cry, kids who were exactly like he used to be. Finn did not remember much from Beatrice's house. He was too young, but he remembered a name, Mama B. He remembered the smell of pancakes, and he remembered laughing. He could not remember what was funny. He just remembered that it was the first time. And sometimes, when he was alone in the hospital break room late at night, that memory was the only thing that kept him going. When Grady called him and said, "I found her," Finn was quiet for a long time. Then he asked one question. "Does she still make the dinosaur ones?" Grady could not answer. He was crying too hard. It took months to plan. 5 men in 5 cities with 5 different schedules and 5 different lives, but one shared understanding. This was not going to be a visit. This was not going to be a phone call or a card or a check in the mail. This was going to be a return, a real one. The kind that changes things permanently. They talked every week on a group call. They pooled money. They hired an architect. They contacted nonprofits. They filed paperwork. They argued about details and agreed on everything that mattered. And they agreed on one rule. Beatrice could not know. Not until they were standing on her porch. Not until she could see their faces. All 5 of them together for the first time in years. Grady said it best on one of those calls. His voice was steady. The way Beatrice's voice had been steady on the morning she knelt in front of him and told him he was not broken. She kept our shoes by the door for years. She wrote us letters every month that she could not even send. She made pancakes every year on the day we left. She never moved. She never stopped. The least we can do is show up. One morning, 5 black SUVs turned onto a dead-end street in South Memphis, and Beatrice Whitaker was watering her rosebush. She did not recognize them at first. Why would she? The last time she saw these faces, they belonged to children. Small hands, baby teeth, shoes that fit in the palm of her hand. Now, 5 men stood on the sidewalk in front of her house. Tall, broad-shouldered, grown. Beatrice set down the garden hose. She squinted against the morning sun. 5 suits, 5 pairs of polished shoes on cracked concrete. Something about the way the tallest one stood, shoulders tense, jaw tight, hands at his sides like he was bracing for impact, made her breath catch. Then he spoke. One word. The name that only 5 people in the world had ever used. Mama B. The garden hose hit the ground. Water pooled around her slippers. She grabbed the porch railing with both hands because her legs stopped working. She looked from face to face, and the years peeled away like paint. "Grady?" A whisper. Then louder. "Wesley? Hudson? Emmett?" Her voice cracked on the last name. "Finn?" Finn stepped forward. He was a doctor now. But right now, he was 4 years old again, standing in a kitchen that smelled like pancakes. He was holding something, a piece of paper, faded and taped at the corners. A crayon drawing of a stick figure woman surrounded by 5 smaller stick figures. Underneath, in a child's handwriting, Mama B and us. Beatrice's knees gave out. All 5 men caught her. 10 hands. The same hands she used to wash and bandage and hold kept her from hitting the ground. She grabbed their arms, their shoulders, their faces. She touched each one like she was checking if they were real. She said their names over and over. Grady, Wesley, Hudson, Emmett, Finn. Like a prayer she had been holding in her mouth for years and could finally say out loud. Then she asked the only question that mattered. "Are you okay? Are all of you okay?" Grady smiled, and one by one they told her. Grady went first. "I am a lawyer, Mama B. Criminal defense. I represent people the system gave up on." He paused. "You used to sit outside my door every night and say you were not going anywhere. I do the same thing now. I sit with my clients, and I tell them the exact same words. Because you were right. That is all anyone needs to hear." Wesley stepped forward. He spoke clearly, slowly, no stutter. "I am a speech therapist. I work with kids who cannot talk, kids who went silent the way I did." His voice shook, not from the stutter, but from everything underneath it. "You never told me to hurry. You just hummed with me until the words came. I do that with every kid I treat. I hum with them first, just like you." Hudson reached into his briefcase and pulled out something Beatrice had not seen in years. The phonics book, battered, taped together, pages worn soft. He held it up. Page 1. The cat sat on the mat. "You read that with me countless times, and you never got tired." He opened it to the first page. "I work with kids like me now, kids they call unadoptable. I show them this book, and I tell them about a woman who sat with me every single night until I could read." Emmett stood straight, the way firefighters stand. "I am a firefighter, Mama B. 11 rescues." His voice dropped. "I could not save my parents. I was 6. There was nothing I could do, but every time I carry someone out of a burning building, I think about you carrying me to that rocking chair. You taught me what saving someone looks like, not with a hose or a ladder, with your arms." And then Finn, the youngest, the one who did not cry, the one who waved through a van window with a smile that did not know it should be breaking. "I am a pediatrician," he said. "I work with kids who do not grow, kids who do not eat, kids who do not cry." He smiled, the same smile years later. "You made me dinosaur pancakes, and I laughed for the first time in my life. I did not even know what laughing was before you. That is why I do this, because every kid deserves someone who makes them laugh." Beatrice could not speak. She looked at these 5 men, built from her pancakes and her patience and her prayers, and she understood something she had been afraid to believe for years. It was not wasted. None of it. Not the sleepless nights, not the empty bank account, not the letters she could not send, not the shoes she would not move. Every single thing she gave them, they carried it. They built lives out of it. They became the proof. But they were not done. Grady handed her an envelope. Inside, the deed to her house, paid off every dollar. The mortgage she had been chipping away at for years, gone. Beatrice shook her head. "Boys, I do not need," Grady stopped her. His voice was gentle, but firm. The voice of a man who had argued in courtrooms and won. "Mama B, you have spent your entire life giving things away and refusing things back. You returned every kindness anyone ever tried to hand you. Not this time." He looked at his brothers. "We are not asking. This is done." Beatrice held the envelope. She did not open it. She pressed it against her chest the way she once pressed Finn's tiny shoes. But the deed was only the beginning, because Grady nodded to Emmett, and Emmett walked to the back of the SUV and pulled out a rolled-up tube of paper, architectural blueprints. And that is when everything changed. Emmett unrolled the blueprints on the porch steps. The paper spread wide across the concrete. Clean lines, measurements, room labels. Beatrice looked down at it and did not understand what she was seeing, not at first. Grady knelt beside her. "This is the Whitaker house, Mama B. We built it for you." "Well, we built it because of you." The Whitaker house, a family-style foster care home, 3 blocks from Beatrice's bungalow in the same neighborhood where she had raised them. Not a group home, not a facility, a house. Designed around everything Beatrice had taught them without ever knowing she was teaching. Small scale, a maximum of 8 children, never more. Because Beatrice showed them that children do not need buildings. They need someone who knows their name. Consistent caregivers who commit for years, not months. No rotating staff. No strangers every 6 weeks. Because Beatrice never rotated. She was there every morning and every night. She was the constant. Home-cooked meals in a real kitchen, not a cafeteria line, not a microwave and a tray. A table with chairs and plates and napkins. Because Beatrice taught them that sitting down together is how a family is built. Each child gets their own space, a bed, a shelf, a hook for their coat. Because Beatrice packed each of them a bag with their name written inside. She taught them that having something that is yours matters. A reading room, Hudson's idea, a music corner, Wesley's, a garden out back, because Beatrice always had one, a workshop where kids could build things with their hands. Emmett pushed for that, and a small medical corner, Finn's contribution, for checkups, screenings, and making sure no child slips through the cracks the way he almost did. And by the front door, a shoe rack. 5 pairs, minimum, always. The total cost was substantial. All 5 brothers had pooled their savings. Grady connected them with nonprofits through his legal work. Emmett's fire station ran a fundraiser. Wesley's hospital matched donations. Hudson secured a federal grant for foster care innovation. Finn donated his entire signing bonus from the hospital. They asked Beatrice to be the founding housemother. Salaried, benefits, a pension, a title, a voice in every decision. "Nobody knows what these kids need better than you," Grady said. "You wrote the playbook. We just followed it." Beatrice stared at the blueprints for a long time. She traced the rooms with her finger. The kitchen, the reading room, the shoe rack. She did not say anything for so long that Wesley thought she was going to say no. Then Emmett walked back to the SUV one more time. He came back carrying a box, a shoe box. Not Beatrice's shoe box, but the same kind, same size, same shape. He set it on the porch beside her. "Open it," Finn said. She lifted the lid. Inside, letters, hundreds of them, handwritten, folded neatly, envelopes with names on the front. 1,200 letters. Every letter Beatrice had written over the years. Grady had recovered them through Rachel Thompson, who had kept copies in the case file all along. He gave copies to each brother. They read every single one, and then they wrote back. Every letter Beatrice sent, they answered. Years late, but answered. Beatrice picked up one at random. A reply from Wesley to a letter she had written when he would have been 14. She read it out loud, barely above a whisper. "Dear Mama B, you asked if I was using my voice. I am. Every single day. Because of you." She closed the box. She pressed it to her chest. She could not read anymore. She looked at the blueprints again. She looked at the 5 men. She looked at the shoe rack in the architect's drawing. And then she said something that surprised all of them. "I do not need the money. I never needed money. I just needed to know you were okay." Her voice cracked. "And you are more than okay." She straightened her back. She wiped her face. And the woman who never said no said it one more time. But those children, the ones in the system right now, the ones sleeping in group homes tonight, the ones whose files say they are too much, they need this. So yes, I will do it. She accepted. Not for herself, for every child who was ever told they were unwanted. And sometime later, the Whitaker house opened its doors. The morning the Whitaker house opened, the first child arrived early. A 6-year-old girl. Brown hair, skinny arms, a garbage bag of belongings dragged behind her like it weighed more than she did. She stood on the porch and did not move. Her eyes were wide and empty, the way Finn's eyes had been years ago. Beatrice was waiting at the door. She knelt down, the same way she had knelt on a different porch in front of different children a lifetime ago, and said, "Come on in, baby. Are you hungry?" She made pancakes, dinosaur shape. The girl ate 3. Within a year, the Whitaker house was full. 8 children. Each one arrived the same way. Scared, angry, silent, or some combination of all 3. And Beatrice handled each one the same way she always had. She did not rush them. She did not fix them. She just stayed. A 10-year-old boy showed up with fists like Grady's, tight, ready, waiting for a reason. His first night, he locked himself in his room and would not come out. Beatrice pulled a chair into the hallway, sat down, and said the words she had said 1,000 times before. "I am right here. I am not going anywhere." He opened the door on the 3rd night. Linda Kane visited the Whitaker house that first year. She walked through the rooms slowly. She saw the kitchen, the reading corner, the garden out back. She saw the shoe rack by the front door. 8 pairs, different sizes, lined up neat. She stood in front of it for a long time. Then she turned to Beatrice and said quietly, "I wish I had seen this model back then." "I am sorry, Ms. Whitaker." Beatrice looked at her. Years between them. Years of silence and loss and letters that were never sent. She could have said 100 things. She said 5 words. "Help me build more of them." One evening, after a long day, Beatrice came home to her bungalow. Something was different. She looked down at the porch. 5 pairs of shoes were lined up by her front door. Not children's shoes. Men's shoes. Dress shoes. Work boots. Sneakers. Running shoes. Loafers. 1 pair from each of her boys. A note was taped to the door in Grady's handwriting. "We finally outgrew the old ones, but we will always come back to this door." She brought them inside. She set them down next to the 5 tiny pairs that had been there for years, small and large, side by side. The whole story told in 10 pairs of shoes. And on the refrigerator at the Whitaker house, 2 crayon drawings hung side by side, the new one by the 6-year-old girl, Ms. B and us. And next to it, faded and taped at the corners, the original, Mama B and us. 2 drawings, years apart. The same love. Yo, real talk. This story broke me, like actually broke me. She wrote letters for years knowing nobody would read them. She made pancakes for kids who were not even there. That is not a story. That is a whole different level of love. And I am still thinking about it. I probably will be for a while. So let me ask you something. Who is your Beatrice? Who loved you when they did not have to? Drop their name in the comments. They deserve to be seen. And if this story hit you somewhere real, if it reminded you that the small things are not small, hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today, and subscribe if you have not yet. We tell stories like this every single week because the world has more Beatrices than you think. You just have to look.
Yeah.